Good morning, I'm Diane Smith. Welcome to Capitol Report Morning Update for Tuesday, May 24th. Thanks for joining us. Here's the latest from the state capitol this morning. The House and Senate will both hold sessions today to take action on bills. On the agenda this week, and possibly beginning today, House and Senate action on the budget implementers, which contain all of the details of the biennial budget signed into law earlier this month. And yesterday, for some longtime members of the press corps, it was deja vu all over again as Governor Malloy announced his support for a complete analysis of the Route 11 highway extension in southeastern Connecticut. This long-stalled project has hit many roadblocks along the way. The governor was joined by DEP and DOT commissioners and 2nd District Congressman Joe Courtney.
And what we're actually announcing today is that we're moving forward with the work that needs to be done. We're re-enlivening a prior contract with the firm necessary to complete the survey work. The environmental work will be undertaken, as well as a funding analysis will be undertaken. All of this work presumably would begin sometime this summer. On the environmental side, it takes a full year because you basically have to follow the properties through all 4 seasons, and so we'll probably get a late summer or summer start, and then if you count the 12 months, we'll get a good read on the topography, on the land, on the environment during that period of time. Also during that period of time, we'll be working on the environmental side, reaching out to the community, getting all the concerns, listening to all the concerns, and even modifying initial ideas as a result of those concerns.
I can tell you that frankly, people were beginning to despair whether or not after 30 years of not seeing this road move forward towards completion, whether or not anything was ever going to happen. And he has come through in terms of the promise that he made to the people of this state to move forward with the steps that we're seeing here today. And again, I want to make it crystal clear. We are the obstacle that we faced in terms of completing this road is the absence of completion of the work that he described here today. We need to get, again, a state-of-the-art plan on the table, and having a DEP commissioner who is going to be involved in that process at the beginning and not at the end. I cannot tell you how important and critical that is to having a successful resolution of this challenge.
As for paying for the Route 11 project, there is a bill still alive this session that would allow the installation of tolls to pay for the construction. The governor has said he supports the idea and that tolls will be studied as part of that overall analysis. Meanwhile, the Appropriations Committee debated referred bills from the House and Senate yesterday, including HB 6489, requiring DNA testing for anyone charged with a serious felony. It ended up passing by a vote of 44 to 10 and returns to the House for future action. The committee also passed SB 1059, implementing the recommendations of the Commission on Enhancing Agency Outcomes, and HB 6581, changing motor vehicle laws, including penalties for cell phone use and texting while driving. But in a surprising move, a Republican amendment to SB 1017, one of the governor's consolidation bills, passed by one vote, 18 to 17. It strikes a section dealing with towns paying overtime and fringe benefits for resident state troopers. The amended bill went on to pass by a vote of 50 to 0. And joining us now to talk about what has been the big issue all session, which is the union concessions deal with the governor, are Larry Dorman from Council 4, he's the Public Affairs Director, and Matt O'Connor, who is the Communications Director of CSEU, SEIU Local 2001, both spokespeople for SEBAC. Good morning, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Diane, thanks.
We have been hearing a lot about the ratification process. Let's talk a little bit about that, because some people are saying, well, this is just taking too long. They thought there'd be a vote by now. Matt?
Well, I would remind folks that 2 years ago, when members of our unions reached agreement for cost savings and job security with then Governor Rell, it took a good 11 days for the release of details. It took that long, in fact, for the completion of an actual tentative agreement. And this is by far a more complex framework that has been achieved. Certainly everyone is mindful of deadlines here at this building in particular, and it's understandable that the members of our unions want resolution and an opportunity to vote sooner rather than later. But it's important that we get it right, much more so than we get it done in any sort of arbitrary timeline.
Because, Larry, what people may not realize is that what you had when you announced an agreement was a framework.
Correct.
And that that dealt with the SEBAC governed issues, which are health care and pensions. The rest of the deals, deals, because really there's so many unions,
agreements
still have to be fleshed out.
Exactly. We reached a framework for a tentative agreement. The administration needs to draw up the full tentative agreement and incorporate that with the current SEBAC agreement, and then we have to, and we are in the process of doing that, which is explaining both proposed changes to health care and pension, as well as the issue of wages and related economic issues. So, as Matt said, this is a complex framework. It's one that, in the end, if it's ratified, will go a long way toward helping put Connecticut on stable economic footing. It will keep people working, which is an important thing in this troubled economy. But, to echo what Matt said, I think getting it right trumps getting it done quickly. And so we're all in the process, all the SEBAC unions, the 15 unions that comprise the SEBAC team, are holding membership meetings and explaining what we can to our members. When the full tentative agreement is finally out, we'll have even more meetings, and we just want to get it right. This is the stakes are too high to not do it otherwise.
Well, then, Matt, explain something to me. Are there still further negotiations that still have to happen?
Yeah, for each of the 15 unions, there are multiple bargaining units, which is really a term that refers to a particular group of workers and their contracts. And each of those contracts needs to be finalized. But even before we get to the process of finalizing those contracts, we have to negotiate the terms of those contracts. What is in the framework is an extension of current contracts for all of the executive and judicial branch employees who are part of the SEBAC coalition. So working out those details and incorporating the economic changes, as Larry mentioned, in the agreement are pay freezes, for example, which are a substantial part of the savings. That all has to be negotiated, and that language has to be finalized, in addition to putting together the tentative agreement that would cover the health care and retirement security changes that are part of the framework as well.
Larry, we've been talking about this health care plan, and it's been called value-based health care. It requires or it would yield some significant savings, but it also would ask employees to, in essence, sign a pledge or a contract to agree to do certain things to maintain and perhaps improve their health. Has there been any pushback on that, or any employees saying, don't tell me what to do?
A lot of questions, obviously, and it's interesting. Dennis Horgan on Connecticut Watchdog wrote a fascinating piece embracing what SEBAC negotiators did. And I would encourage your viewers to go to Connecticut Watchdog and look for that column. And what we've tried to do is change the healthcare paradigm a little bit, or actually a lot, by saying, we need to continue pioneering ways to prevent serious illness, to keep people healthy.
Now, we had the speaker here last week and the Senate Minority Leader at the same time, and they both pointed to a company in the state that's already instituted a similar type of a plan,
right.
Pitney Bowes, and they both praised it.
Yeah.
But what the Minority Leader said is that in the first 2 years, which is what we'd be talking about in the framework of this agreement, they saw no savings. So why should we expect to see savings in our first 2 years?
Well, with all due respect, the Minority Leader has come out against the agreement. The Minority Leader would like to see more layoffs, would like to see a continuing explosion in costs. He has an agenda, which is to see this what is a sensible agreement torpedoed. The fact is that Pitney Bowes is one of the leaders in the private sector with this kind of health-enhanced program, and state employees through our Labor Management Healthcare Cost Containment Committee have done a good job of trying to hold down costs, but we need to ramp that up. We need to say that we're going to keep people healthy, and by keeping people healthy, by emphasizing preventive treatment, it's going to save the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars down the road, and it's going to break the cycle in which we see premium, cost shares, deductibles rise to incredibly high levels to the point where employees, workers, public or private, really can't afford to get their health care. And all it does is put money in the pockets of the employers and insurance companies. And so that's the paradigm we need to change. We emphasize prevention. We create an incredible pool of savings. And I think everybody wins, including the taxpayers, most importantly, who do subsidize the health care.
Matt, there's been some discussion, in fact, I think the governor brought it up yesterday, that Lieutenant Governor Nancy Wyman may be asked to go on the road and speak to the rank and file to try to sell this plan. Is there any plan for that at this stage?
No plans at this point. I think that the governor recognized that there's a lot in the agreement, in the framework agreement, that he has a responsibility to, in particular in the ways in which the leaders of our unions and the administration's representatives came to a point of agreement on how to transform state government. There's an awful lot of work for the governor himself to do. Executive orders that need to be issued, committees that need to be formed, and appointments need to be made. And just one example, the creation of an information technology committee that will look at significant cost savings in the way in which IT services are provided and delivered to the residents of Connecticut, and in order for the members of our unions to play a role, how they can help bring about those cost savings. That's some significant work, and so there's some commitments for the governor to live up to in this agreement as well.
Well, as you're talking about that, one of the things that some of the Republican leaders have been scoffing at, I would say, is what they're calling the employee suggestion box, in which some savings would come directly from suggestions by employees. And in fact, they're saying, well, if they have suggestions, why haven't they made them already, and why haven't they already been implemented?
Well, one point that I would make, Diane, with this agreement is its recognition of the Innovations Review Panel, which was formed under then Governor Weicker and established by the legislature, codified by the legislature in the early 90s, and very successfully created a process for rank and file state workers to come forward with cost savings recommendations and actually have them implemented, have them reviewed not just by agency chiefs, but also by folks from the business community who were very active participants in that program. It was very effective, very successful, saved hundreds of millions of dollars throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s. It actually still exists. It's a statute that has not gone away. The problem is that then Governor John Rowland in 2003 laid off the only staff assigned to manage the program, and it has effectively been defunct ever since. To call it a suggestion box is really disrespectful and demeaning to the rank and file state workers who have continually come forward with ways in which to be more efficient and save money. This is one way in which we're engaging, we're activating the collective brainpower of rank and file state workers to come forward with innovative ways to save money. And in fact, the state's representatives agree that it's going to produce substantial savings for taxpayers.
Larry, one last question, and I've been asked by a lot of people. If one unit or one union decided to turn down the agreement, could the governor then go in and lay off people in that unit or union by saying you didn't go along with the agreement, therefore you guys, X amount of you guys have to go?
Right. Because it's a two-part process, our members are going to be voting on the health and pension changes as recommended by SEBAC and the tentative agreement. They'll have a second vote on the wage concessions. So theoretically, if a bargaining unit rejects the wage concessions, they would not get the 4-year job security language that goes with that. And we'll see what happens. We're working very hard, as I've said, to make sure that our members are as educated and as informed as possible so they can make an educated and informed vote when ratification time comes. So difficult to predict what would happen, but certainly, it's going to be in the hands of our members to vote. And if they choose to turn down that piece of it, then they would not get the job security language. Whether we would see layoffs, I would hope not. Layoffs aren't going to help anybody or anything, but we'll deal with that.
Anybody estimating on when this whole process will be complete?
Well, we're looking at several weeks still, Diane. At this point,
End of June, beginning of July?
I think we're looking at